It is midnight in Washington, 5 in London, and 2 on a Friday afternoon here in Seoul. I'm Moon Gun-young. Let's get a check of the main stories we're following at this hour. Despite North Korea's latest call to cancel annual South Korea-U.S. military drills, Seoul says it will go ahead with the exercises in the coming months as planned. Analysts say Pyongyang could use this as an excuse to launch provocations. Following House approval, the U.S. Senate gives the green light to a spending bill that's attracted a great deal of attention in Northeast Asian countries for the inclusion of a statement on the sexual enslavement of women across Asia by the Japanese military during World War II. Now, President Barack Obama is expected to sign it into law on Friday. And President Park Geun-hye, on the third day of her state visit to India, continues on with her sales diplomacy in the private sector, vouching for Korean companies that are tapping into the world's second most populous nation. We'll have those stories and more, but first, Pyongyang needs to start showing sincerity through actions and not words. That is South Korea's response to North Korea's proposal a day earlier to end all cross-border slandering and reduce military tensions. And its annual joint military drills with Washington will take place as scheduled next month. Our Unification Ministry correspondent Hwang Sung-hee reports.
A day after North Korea made what it called an important proposal to stop cross-border slanging matches, South Korea expressed its regret over Pyongyang's attempts to mislead the South Korean public by distorting the facts. Unification Ministry spokesperson Kim Ui-do said Friday that it was North Korea that violated a similar inter-Korean agreement in the past.
North Korea called for an end to cross-border slandering in its New Year's speech 2 weeks ago, but it still throws insults and threatens South Korea. The North must remember that trust between the two Koreas will be built through action and not through words.
In its proposal Thursday, the North's National Defense Commission suggested the two Koreas stop throwing insults at each other as of January 30th. The North also said it would initiate steps to ease military tensions if Seoul called off its annual joint military exercises with Washington that take place in early spring. This offer was also flatly turned down by the South.
Our military drills are annual defensive training exercises carried out by a sovereign state, and we officially notify neighboring countries, including North Korea, every year, as is the international custom.
In regards to North Korea's nuclear program, Seoul said Pyongyang is threatening peace on the Korean peninsula with its nuclear ambitions, and added the regime must take practical steps towards denuclearization. As for the resumption of family reunions for those separated since the Korean War, South Korea says it is a humanitarian issue that should be dealt with separately from political tensions. It said a swift resumption of the reunions would be a first step toward friendlier inter-Korean relations. Hwang Sung-hee, ARIRANG News.
It's almost certain now that Japan will come under greater international pressure to acknowledge its wartime atrocities after the U.S. House and now the Senate passed a bill that urges Japan to apologize for its sexual enslavement of women during World War II. Our Han Da-eun has more on this historic development.
The U.S. Senate, for the first time in the history of U.S. legislation, has included the issue of the so-called comfort women in its spending bill. On Thursday local time, the Senate passed a bill that calls on the Japanese government to stick to a 2007 resolution which urged Tokyo to issue an official apology for its wartime sexual enslavement of women. The bill also calls on the U.S. Secretary of State to encourage Japan to address the issues raised in the resolution. Comfort women euphemistically refers to women forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military during the Second World War. An estimated 200,000 women, mostly Korean, are known to have been abused as sex slaves by Japanese troops in the early 20th century. The bill will be taken to the White House for President Barack Obama's signature on Friday. Despite such an unprecedented call from the U.S. to apologize, some Japanese politicians are going in the opposite direction. A group of Japanese lawmakers who claim a comfort woman statue erected in the U.S. city of Glendale should be removed stormed into Glendale City Hall on Thursday to file a complaint. City officials, however, refused to meet them, saying there was no reason to remove the statue as it was built for humanitarian reasons. But the Japanese group didn't stop here. They waved Japanese flags and took pictures in front of the statue to the shock of passers-by. Attention is now focused on how the Japanese government will react following Washington's passing of the bill. 한다은, 아리랑 뉴스.
And in the state of Virginia, a bill on identifying the body of water between Korea and Japan as both the East Sea and the Sea of Japan in local public school textbooks is moving through the state legislature. The bill submitted by Democrat David Morrison was passed on Thursday with bipartisan support in a vote of 9-4 by the Virginia Senate's Education and Health Committee. Now, if passed by the full Senate and the lower house of the legislature, the bill could take effect as early as July. This is the second attempt to pass the bill after it was voted down 2 years ago. Japan is reportedly trying to block the bill by actively lobbying Virginia lawmakers in both the upper and lower house. Korea considers the name Sea of Japan as a legacy of Japan's imperialistic past. Over in New Delhi, President Park Geun-hye held summit talks with her Indian counterpart Manmohan Singh on Thursday. The two leaders agreed to upgrade their trade agreement as soon as possible and take necessary measures to nurture a favorable business environment for investors in both countries. Our Oh Jin-ju, who's traveling with the president, sent us this report.
President Park's visit to India aims at laying the path for Korean firms to more easily enter the world's second-largest market by population. One of the most notable accomplishments of the summit talks between President Park and Indian Prime Minister Manmohan Singh on Thursday was the two leaders deciding to quickly upgrade the Korea-India Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or CEPA, so that it covers not only goods but also investments and services.
한인도 포괄적 경제 동반자 협정 개선 작업을 가능한 빠른 시일 내에 완료하기 위해 최대한 노력하기로 하였습니다.
The two countries will be holding ministerial-level talks on the matter in March. Both leaders also agreed to revise the tax treaty between the two nations to reduce the tax burden on Korean and Indian companies operating in each other's countries and to prevent double taxation.
양국 간의 투자 확대 및 영업 환경 개선에 중요한 토대를 마련한 것을 의미 있게 생각합니다.
President Park has also sought an expansion in financial support for Korean firms willing to take part in infrastructure projects in India, part of its 5-year development plan, with MOUs having been signed between Korea's Exim Bank and Indian financial institutions. POSCO's stall project to build a steel mill in the Indian state of Odisha looks like is finally back on track, with President Park securing promises from the Indian government to resolve the obstacles that have been blocking progress for roughly 9 years now. The Korean steel giant was granted an environmental clearance for the 2,700 acres of land required for the project and also secured a promise from the Odisha state government to grant POSCO a prospecting license for an iron ore mine some 300 kilometers from the steel mill. President Park will push on with her sales diplomacy pitch, taking part in a Korea-India business forum and meeting with the chairman of India's Mahindra Group to call for further investment in Korea. Oh Jin-ju, ARIRANG News, New Delhi.
Now, with the once red-hot smartphone market settling into a slower growth, the information technology industry will explore new frontiers this year. In the last of our 5-part industry series, our UDN tells us what's up and coming in the IT industry.
2014 will be the year when wearable technology takes off. Samsung burst onto the smartwatch scene last year.
Hey, pretty lady.
But the electronic giant's tagline haven't really worked with consumers. The company recently rolled out an upgraded Galaxy Gear smartwatch that allows users to control home appliances by remote. And with the Apple iWatch and Google Glass due to hit shelves this year, the stage has been set for a fierce competition to win consumers over with the latest wearable gadgets.
We need to build our own software for wearables. While Samsung's smartwatch is powered by Google Android, Google Glass uses its own software.
Korean companies are also jumping into another hot battleground this year, the so-called IoT market, or Internet of Things, connecting objects to objects. Take this service, for example. Press a button on your smartphone, and your car engine starts. If someone tries to break into your car, an alarm goes off in the car and on your smartphone.
By combining our IoT technology and a car servicing company, we've created a new service that allows you to monitor your car wherever you are.
Now, there's a familiar area in which electronics companies will try to make a comeback, and that's TVs. Ultra-high-definition TVs, to be exact. Ultra HD TVs offer 4 times the resolution of regular HD TVs, and the technology is expected to be the main driver of TV sales this year, especially with the upcoming Winter Olympics and World Cup. IT products by Samsung and other Korean companies were major contributors to the Korean economy in 2013. Exports of IT products reached a record high last year, making up nearly a third of the country's overall exports. But Korea faces new challenges this year, with smartphones no longer considered a safe cash cow. The big question is, will Korean players remain as movers and shakers of the industry? Yurian, ARIRANG News.
And taking a brief look at how the local stock market is doing at this hour, Seoul shares traded lower early on this Friday as downbeat U.S. corporate results chilled risk sentiment before the full-scale domestic market earnings season starts next week, and offshore investors repositioned as sellers. As of 1:30 p.m. Korea time, the benchmark Kospi was down 0.3%, trading at 1951. While the tech-heavy Kosdaq was trading nearly flat at 517. On the foreign exchange counter, the Korean currency was trading stronger against the greenback at roughly 1,061 won. Now, in domestic politics, 3 sitting lawmakers have lost their seats in Korea's parliament after the Supreme Court on Thursday found them guilty of illegal electioneering. Now, this means the rival parties will have to prepare for by-elections on top of local elections set for June. ARIRANG's parliamentary correspondent Kim Hyun-ji reports.
It was the last thing Korea's major political parties wanted. But with the removal of 3 lawmakers on Thursday, by-elections will have to be held. The lawmakers told to clear their desks were found guilty of illegal electioneering ahead of the 2012 general elections. One of the 3 was a proportional representative, which means the person next in line on the ruling party's proportional representation ticket will automatically assume her position. But the constituencies previously represented by the 2 other lawmakers will have to elect a new lawmaker in July. At least 6 other lawmakers face the possibility of losing their seats on similar illegal electioneering charges and are awaiting the Supreme Court's final verdict. Political watchers say the shakeup means up to 15 seats could be up for grabs for the July by-election. By-elections are usually held twice a year in April and in October. But this year, the first by-election should be held on July 30th. This is because of a special provision that says a by-election should be held the first Wednesday that falls 50 days after local elections. This means, theoretically, that Korea will have 3 elections in the span of 5 months. The June 4th local elections, a by-election on July 30th, and another by-election on October 29th. The rival parties agree that they should reduce the number of elections from the current 3 to 2, but they differ on how to go about it. The ruling Saenuri Party says the June local elections and the July by-election should be combined and held together in June. But the main opposition Democratic Party says the 2 by-elections should be combined and held in October. The rival parties have agreed to discuss the matter next week at the Special Parliamentary Committee to Reform Politics. Although both parties say their proposal is the best to reduce administrative costs and voter fatigue, pundits say their own political interests have certainly been taken into consideration. Kim Hyun-ji, ARIRANG News.
all of the day's important events. Events close to home, around the world.
Second half last, figure out what winners.
The arts and culture scene and the heart of global business.
Experts added that
ARIRANG News has your whole day covered.
The legislature will convene a plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the
Korean officials have confirmed an outbreak of avian influenza in the southern part of this country in the nation's first case of the virus since 2011. Now, the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs said Friday that it had confirmed the presence of the H5N1 virus in poultry at a farm in Gochang, Jeollabuk-do province. The AI case was first reported on Thursday, prompting provincial authorities to cull all 20,000 ducks there, and access to the area has been restricted. Farms in other provinces that have recently bought ducks from the Gochang farm are also taking precautionary measures against the virus. Korea's last avian influenza outbreak resulted in the culling of 3 million birds back in 2011. Meanwhile, 4 leaders of the state rail company's labor union have been formally detained for further questioning for their alleged role in organizing the nation's longest ever rail strike. The 4 core union members, including leader Kim Myung-hwan, were put under detention immediately after the Seoul Western District Court approved the police's request for arrest warrants. The judge says all 4 played key roles in the 22-day strike, and there was concern they could try to flee or tamper with evidence. The court dismissed the request to issue warrants for 5 other union leaders. 13 union members voluntarily turned themselves in on Tuesday after defying police summons and taking refuge in several groups in different locations, even after the strike ended on December 30th. Now, over in Egypt, turnout was low, but the roughly 40% of Egyptians who did head to the polls this week overwhelmingly backed the interim government's new constitution. The supporters of ousted Islamist President Mohamed Morsi and his Muslim Brotherhood boycotted the vote. Son Jung-in has the details.
Preliminary tallies indicate that more than 90% of the people who voted in Egypt are in support of the interim government's newly proposed constitution, according to state media reports. Egyptians formed long lines outside polling stations in major urban areas on Tuesday and Wednesday, and the turnout in Cairo and Alexandria was about 40%, which is higher than in a 2012 referendum on the Islamist-backed constitution. It was the first vote since Islamist President Mohamed Morsi was ousted by the military last July. The new constitution guarantees greater protection for the freedoms of belief and speech. It also guarantees equality between men and women and bans political parties from being formed based on religion, race, or geography. The overwhelming outcome nudges Army Chief General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi a step closer to running for president. Experts say Sisi, who is extremely popular among his supporters, appears the only serious candidate, but he hasn't yet indicated whether he will run. The vote did not come without some resistance from Morsi's Muslim Brotherhood, which had called for a boycott. On the first day of voting, 9 people died in clashes involving Morsi's supporters, and on Thursday, students rallied outside the University of Cairo, resulting in confrontations with security forces that left 1 person dead and 4 injured. Some 400 people are said to have been arrested during the 2-day referendum for disrupting the vote. Mohamed Morsi, who was Egypt's first democratically elected president, is being held in jail in Alexandria and faces several criminal charges relating to his time in office. The Election Commission said the official results of the referendum will be announced Saturday evening local time, when it will also announce the date for presidential and parliamentary elections. Son Jung-in, ARIRANG News.
Well, it is time for our final arts and culture segment of the week with our Lee Tae-ho, and today I hear that Tae-ho brings with him news of a very popular festival that would make for a perfect weekend trip for those of us here in Korea. Good afternoon to you, Tae-ho.
Good afternoon.
So apparently this festival that you'll be telling us about today is very popular this time of the year.
Exactly. Now this festival is very popular for good reason. It's considered one of the best winter festivals, not just here in Korea, but all around the world. So what makes this festival so popular? Well, let's go ahead and find out.
Featured on CNN as one of the 7 wonders of winter and a recipient of the IFEA World Festival and Event City Award, the Hwacheon Sancheonho Festival is regarded as one of the best festivals, not just in Korea, but around the world. And despite the fact that Hwacheon is located in Gangwon-do, which is the coldest region in all of Korea, over 1.3 million people are expected to visit the festival this year during its 23-day run. The festival's main attraction is a type of trout called sancheonho, or rather, the catching of these slippery delicacies. The Hwacheon area is the first to freeze in the winter, making it the perfect place for ice fishing, which is the Sancheonho Festival's claim to fame. Every year, the festival offers 3 different forms of ice fishing. The first and simplest way is to break the 4-meter thick sheet of ice, drop in a line, and wait for the fish to bite.
I like ice fishing, my first time, and maybe I'm going to catch a big fish.
For the fishing purists, the festival also offers lure fishing, which is a chance to put the fisherman's skill to test. And for the brave of heart, visitors are also welcome to throw on a pair of shorts and try to catch a fish bare-handed.
Even though my feet feel like they are frozen, my heart is filled with excitement. It is the best.
But the reality is that not all visitors are interested in fishing, which is why this festival truly shines. The organizers of the event realize this and have put together a program of 60 activities so that everybody has something to enjoy. First is the Snow and Ice Experience program, and the second is the Winter Culture program. The Snow and Ice Experience features an array of activities for the whole family to enjoy together, such as sledding, bobsledding, and even a snowmobile zone. And in the Winter Culture program, families can enjoy a variety of experiences, including the Ice Illumination Plaza, which showcases an array of UNESCO-sanctioned cultural treasures lit up with colored lights and made completely of ice. It is a festival worthy of its standing as one of the best. A festival that has an excellent array of activities that anybody and everybody from everywhere can enjoy, which is why it draws so many people in droves to the coldest region in all of Korea. The festival is currently running in the Hwacheon area of Gangwon-do until the 26th of January.
Well, you know, Taeho, I mean, there are a lot of people, and you mentioned the millions of people visit this festival every year, but what caught my eyes was the number of fish that are caught every day for however many days that this festival runs.
Well, you know, that's another aspect that organizers actually worry about and prepare for. They contract with fisheries for a certain amount of the mountain trout, but the demand still outpaces the supply. So what happens is that they turn to local fisheries and local fishermen in neighboring regions for more amounts of the fish.
So this is not just a festival, but this is actually turning the dynamism of the local economy in a different way.
That's right. Now, that's kind of the main point of these regional festivals, to kind of help the local economy. And what it doesn't help just the Hwacheon area, but neighboring district, provinces, and regions as well, because it employs the use of local fisheries as well.
Right, and you know, the accommodation needs there, and restaurants and whatever the facilities that these tourists would need, that would boost the economy there as well.
Exactly, and I think that's the main point of the government's economic plan right now, to improve local economies using these creative festivals and such. So.
All right, well, Taeho, thank you very much for that perfect weekend trip idea, and we will see you on Monday.
All right.
Now, if you live here in Korea, if you look out the window right now, you will see a heavy smog blanketing the nation, and there is a heavy ultrafine dust advisory issued in Seoul and the surrounding regions, so look out for that. But here now is a look at the weather conditions in your neck of the woods. And that is all from me at this hour. Thank you everyone for watching. I'll be back with more of the day's latest at 4 p.m. Korea time. Do join us then.